Hello everyone, this is Baeza, and today we're going to be making a video for a particular topic that is mainly for individuals that perhaps affiliates or partners, or they just simply want to know how is it that they can help someone that is looking for funding. So my topic for today is really navigating the loan underwriting process and just tips of building client profiles so that everything can go smoothly and easily and effortlessly throughout the funding process. So the first thing that I want to touch upon is pretty much how to gather and organize required documentations, right? Because every lender is going to have a different criteria. When it comes to lending, every lender that you decide to go with is going to have their own pros and cons. Some of them may be a little bit more lenient towards their credit report. Some of them may be more lenient towards maybe the assets or collateral, whether you're looking for funding or maybe the client's looking for funding. It is always important to know at least what kind of documentations does that particular lender have prior to taking a client over through that particular lender. So the first thing is we want to make sure the tax returns are correct. We want to make sure that everything is intact when it comes to the paycheck stubs. If there's no paycheck stubs, what kind of documentation can we show the lender about that they can actually make their money back, right? And now keep in mind that it also depends on the type of lending that you have. For example, an SBA loan is going to be very different than a term loan and a line of credit, as well as it's going to be very different than a collateral based loan or even invoice financing. But one of the things that it is important is to know what kind of documents does a client have. So if a client does not have tax returns, then that kind of puts you in a criteria where you have to look for lenders that don't require tax returns. And that's exactly what we do as well. We want to make sure that we put the client first and that we put it in a situation where they can succeed. The second thing is really understanding the lender requirements and how lenient. Even though a lender may require tax returns, it is also important to know what kind of alternative documents they may have. So for example, some of them may require tax returns, but if they can instead show proof of income of maybe perhaps rent rolls if they're in the real estate arena, or maybe perhaps they can show some invoices. So there's a lot of different things that go into picking the right lender. But the other thing too is making sure that a client fills out the application the right way. If they don't fill out the application the right way, what happens is that nowadays either AI is the one reviewing the application or it is an actual individual. Regardless of whether it's AI or an actual individual, keep in mind that if there's information missing on the application, it may automatically decline because either the underwriter, the physical underwriter, does not want to go through the hassle of having to guess a person's date of birth if it's somewhere in the application, or even just AI trying to figure out where can they find this information. Because once AI is involved, it is very important for you to know that AI's job is to save time on the applications that are considered perhaps maybe a waste of time. So we don't want to put you guys or anyone into that category. So it is important for you to really make sure that a client has the right information in the right place. The other thing is that we want to make sure that even though a business plan is not necessarily required for all the lenders, it is still very important for you to have, because a business plan is really just going to be more of a bird's eye view as to what you can expect. If you have a business plan, great, excellent, you're ahead of the game. But if you do not have a business plan, it is important for you to know at least what kind of strategy are you going to implement in this business. The exit strategy, the startup strategy, and in between, everything needs to be at least put into paper or at least have an idea. Some lenders may require it, some lenders may not, but it doesn't mean that it's not any less important. The other thing too is that we want to make sure that we highlight the client's strengths, right? Because what happens is that sometimes the client may not have certain criteria that is suited for that particular lender, but let's just say that a lender is giving out 0% interest rates for the first 6 months to 18 months. But again, it doesn't meet the lender's criteria. Regardless of whether they meet the criteria or not, it is still very important that there is a section somewhere in the application that we put in there that maybe perhaps the person is a veteran or they served in the military. Some of those things are highlighted strengths, because sometimes lenders will make exceptions for people that have that type of background. If you're a healthcare worker, if you're a teacher, anything of that nature, it is super important to put that somewhere in the application. We exactly know how to do that, but it's always important that if you're dealing with a client that maybe perhaps is not as strong, and even if it is as strong, go ahead and ask, have you served in the military? Are you, I noticed that you're a doctor or a teacher or a nurse. All of those things need to be put into the application, or at least put into somewhere in the notes to know that you have somebody that we may be able to enhance in terms of putting our best foot forward with the lender. Internally, we want to see what the weaknesses are, right? Let's just say that a person just recently quit their job about a week ago. That would be a weakness, because if a lender is requesting documents about proof of employment, we want to get this quick, because otherwise what's going to happen is that the lender's going to require the most recent paycheck stub, and if there is no recent paycheck stub, then that deal's probably dead. Because of that, because of the importance of making sure that we also know our weaknesses, we can maneuver things a little bit quicker, faster, efficiently, maybe perhaps in a different direction. That way the client can actually get funded. The other thing too is maintaining a clear and open communication. Anything that may not seem important or important, you need to let the underwriter know. You need to let anybody that you trust know, whether it's your consultant, preferably internally first, so we can strategize how to position this with a lender, right? Because the lender's job is to make sure that the risk is not as big as they would want to go. And so the more risk they have, the less likely that your loan will get approved. And that is why it's important for you to tell whoever it is that's helping you, whether it's us, whether it's your consultant, whether it's an affiliate, anybody that you trust, it is important for you to know that you have to be able to be open and let them know about everything. And that means a late payment. That means that maybe perhaps you just recently ran a big transaction on a credit card. Anything that may seem of importance, you got to be able to let whoever it is that's helping you know, because that way the strategy could be perhaps a different route, maybe positioning it a little bit different with the lender. You never know, but everything matters. The other important thing that I want to talk to you about is that whenever a client is needing the money in a certain time frame, it is always important to set expectations. Because one of the things that I go through is that sometimes clients go through the process of thinking that everything's going to be in the bank account the next day or within hours. I have no idea how is it that people can expect that sometimes, but it is possible. I'm not saying it's not, but it's very challenging. At the same time, it is very important for somebody like myself, somebody like my consultant, somebody like our partners or affiliates to let the client know that we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best, but I much rather under promise and over deliver. And that's really the approach that I have seen over the last several years that works best for our clients. And it's making sure that we do our very, very best, but at the same time, we let the clients know that if there is a timeline, there's a small possibility that it may not meet the timeline, depending on how you see that situation. If somebody needs the money in a couple of days, it is very important that you figure out what's the likelihood that it will actually go through. Because sometimes people have alternative options. Sometimes people have other ways to fund a deal, or maybe perhaps other ways to getting to their goal. And it is not fair for somebody to give them false expectations and for them to put all their eggs in one basket only to find out that there's going to be disappointment. So it's always making sure that you manage the expectations correctly, that you set realistic expectations with the clients, and that's regarding your timeline and the outcome. So the other thing too is that we want to make sure that we offer our pretty much the ongoing guidance. And the way that it works is that a client is not always going to be aware of the whole process, because sometimes things will show up differently. Lenders will much rather call. Sometimes lenders would much rather send a link via text to the client so they can take a selfie or maybe a video of themselves holding their ID next to each other. So you got to be open to change and be able to maneuver that with the client. So whenever there is a client that comes through the process, always make sure that you provide ongoing support, and that whoever it is that's helping needs to be aware of that. For me, we always make ourselves available, even if it's after hours, even if it's during the weekend. There's really no break, because anything anything can happen when it comes to lending. The good thing is that most banks and most lenders, they are typically not open on Saturdays and Sundays. So because of that, it does give both the lender and our underwriting team a little bit of a break. The calls that we do take after hours and during the weekends are typically client calls, but it's still very important for you to know exactly what you're getting yourself into. So the process has to be there. We want to make sure that the client gets funded. We want to make sure that the client gets what they're looking for. And so these are a couple of the points that we have seen over the last several years that is super important for you to help your client get funded and go through the underwriting process the right way, easily and efficiently. So hopefully these tips help for those of you guys that are partners of ours, or for those of you guys that are brokers, or that simply are helping others get access to money. Some of the things that we're going over, again, it is all open to interpretation depending on the type of lending that you're getting your client. Typically, a lot of this is all hands down super easy and efficiently if you do it the right way. And once you have a list, you can certainly duplicate it and then just make sure that all of your clients go through the funding process easily and effortlessly. So again, this is Jose Baeza. Hit the like and notifications button if you haven't done so yet. Make sure to subscribe for more videos, and I'm looking forward to helping you guys out and being of service. Talk to you guys soon.